did your marriage end too? My husband and I met at the university. We were friends first, and I never thought that a guy like him would ever lay an eye on me. He was handsome and exciting. There was nothing wrong with me. I was pretty and smart, but I had no self-confidence at that time. Somehow we got together at a party when we were both 22 and fell in love. His family was rich, mine was not really, so soon I found myself moving into his flat, and our relationship was blooming. The butterfly feeling that usually lasts for a couple months lasted for years to me. We led an adventurous life, always chasing thrill and excitement. I thought I was happy, and I probably really was, but I failed to notice that I was heavily under the influence of his personality, suppressing mine way too much. I have always been very easygoing. This did not concern me too much. Didn't even notice. From the outside and the inside, our relationship was perfect. At least I thought. Years passed by, and 7 years later, when many of our friends were getting married and started to make babies, he asked me to marry him. I was not really pushing for a marriage, as always thought that having kids together is a much stronger bond, but was happy about it and said yes. We rushingly put together a wedding, which was nothing romantic whatsoever, rather a big party for friends. I did not mind. I always had the feeling that he asked me because his parents expected/pressured him to do so. 2 to 3 months after the wedding, we have started to try for a baby. I had some concerns that even if we had a kid, he would still live the same life, leaving me alone with all the family matters, but I put those aside too. After 2 months of not really trying, we decided that there is something we should do before. We should leave home and travel for another 6 to 12 months. Once that is over, we would be ready to settle down and have a family. He had this thing with life, that somehow he could never get enough, never feel satisfied. I did not care about it at that time. Now I think I should have. It stops you from being able to appreciate what you have. 1 year after our wedding, he arrived to a Caribbean island to start our new nomadic life filled with travels and adventures. I followed a month later, had to work with all my excitement and hopes, also with all my savings to spend, thinking I could start saving money again once we were back home, no need to worry about having to pay rent, etc. On the day after I arrived, he told me he cheated on me back at home, once, with a coworker. It was totally unexpected. We never had any infidelity during our 8 years together, and I was angry. But I also thought that this is not the end of everything. He needs to show some regret. At some point, I will be able to move on, and we can continue, maybe even stronger as before. I was so wrong. In the next couple of days, somehow he became suspicious. His stories did not make sense. I had the feeling that he did not tell the entire story. I hacked his Skype account, not proud, to find out the truth that he never had the courage to tell me. Since the 3rd month of our marriage, he's been sleeping with his coworker, bringing her to his home whenever I'm out, falling in love with her, etc. His reasons for our big trip was not to do something fun before starting a family, but to let that relationship end itself, as he wasn't able to break up with her in person, neither with me. Still, while the two of us were away on a remote island, trying to save our marriage and the life that we both loved, he did not stop exchanging romantic messages with her daily. I wanted to come home when this all became clear, but he convinced me to continue traveling and we can work it out and fix things. On some days, it really seemed like we could. Other days, it felt like the end of the world. As we ran out of money and coming home became a reality, 5 months had passed. He was already certain that he would like to continue with that other girl. I was helplessly alone at the other side of the globe without friends, family, or anyone to talk to but him. I decided to stay at another hostel as I could not watch him laughing and chatting with his mistress while I'm trying to work remotely to keep the only thing I have left, my job, and also trying to convince him to give ourselves another chance. We arrived home. I asked him to spend a week alone or with his family and think things through before he really decides on anything final. He said okay, but went to his girlfriend straight away instead. With a couple weeks of back and forth, I finally moved out from what I called our home. Took all my stuff during Easter weekend while he was visiting his family. He said he was finally spending some time alone trying to choose between me and his girlfriend. He did not notice that I moved out for another 3 days as he did not go home from her. This is when I was finally able to say that it is enough. I cut all communications with him. Surprisingly, as soon as I did that, he really wanted me back, but it was too late. I knew I would not be able to forgive all of this, and didn't want to live the rest of my life in such an imbalanced relationship. It was really hard to decide and to stick to it. For another 6 months, he was trying to get me back on 1 week, coming to my workplace even, as I did not answer the phone, while on other weeks he got together with or dumped that other girl. I still don't get why she tolerated that, as she was really a plan B too for him, just to make sure he won't end up alone. A couple months later, we officially divorced. That was the most humiliating day of my life, having to tell the story at the court, acknowledging that I don't want any money, and have nothing left that we ought to share. I had nothing, and I was left like a bag of trash. I was 31 at that time. 2 years have passed, and they are still together. I wish I could ignore the feeling of how unfair this is. I wish they were unhappy, or I wish I would not care. I wish I could also say that writing this down makes me feel lighter about it, but it doesn't. I haven't talked to him since then, except for one time, when he gave me back a pair of my ski pants that I left at his place, just forgot to mention that his new girlfriend actually wore them. For me, things turned out pretty well. I had great friends and family supporting me throughout this whole thing. I met an amazing man quite early on. I was a very difficult catch with lots of emotional instability and a crazy ex-husband trying to get me back, but he stuck with me. I love him with all my heart and could not be more grateful to have met him. I hope when time comes he will be the father of my children. I just don't see this wound to ever heal.